Tune in to Music Buzz Live Radio Wednesdays, 6 to 8 p.m. right here on Worldviral TV.
Worldviral. This is the Medina Grooves.
You're watching Music Buzz Live on Worldviral TV, presented by Colorado Harvest Company.
Yeah.
Herman's Hideaway.
Just turning stuff on downstairs, but we'll be ready to go in about 5 minutes.
Herman's Hideaway, Monday night. We are excited to have everybody in the house. We are excited for our great friends to be here to give us a little science learning. We want to thank everybody that's here in the house experiencing this live. If you're not checking this out live, you can always stream us. We want to say what's up to our worldviral.tv fans and friends that are streaming this live. We hope that you guys are excited to have some awesome science talk right now. Let me turn down the house music quick. Frank Conrad, aka Scientist Frank, from Colorado Green Labs, the man that officially debunked THC in the water supply. We are absolutely honored to have you, Mr. Frank Conrad. Without further ado, here you are, my friend.
Yeah, there was much influencing. A lot of my jokes are terrible and they really date me and how old I am, so I'll just try to come up with better jokes. There's a little box outlined here in green tape, and I think I'm going to have to need to get a bark collar that, with a little perimeter, because I like to walk around. If you see me leaving my little box, wave or something, because it means I'm outside of the camera view, and then there'll just be a voice, and that makes for a less quality video. So anyway, appreciate everyone coming out. This is Frank Talk. I'm the laboratory director of Colorado Green Lab. My partner is Cindy, and business partner, Cindy is right there taking video. We are, I was like, save your applause, or at least appreciate it. Herman's Hideaway is now really last minute. We found that we needed more space, and Herman's Hideaway, thank you very much for providing this space for everyone to kind of meet and talk about science. Now really applaud. We really appreciate it. Chad Drew of Worldviral helped us with a lot of AV and even setting this up, and he was the man who just introduced me. So applaud again. So this is a great chance for us to actually have cannabis community science discussion. I'm going to tell you some things that are going to blow your mind. They really, really are. So you're like, oh, marijuana is legal. Why do I care about this? You will. All right, conversion of CBD to THC. That doesn't happen. It does. Boo! God damn it. I keep looking at this little box, so I'll do that throughout this until I get used to it. Just as an outline, foreseeable consequences of being somebody who's like, you can't tell people CBD converts to THC. They'll make it Schedule 0. Is there a Schedule 0?
There will be.
There will be. No, there won't be. Path of least resistance. This is going to make sense in a little bit. I promise not to give you too much scientist PTSD from high school. This will make sense. Probability of conversion. It is true that it's easier to convert CBD to THC in the lab. It doesn't have to be a huge conversion, though, to be illegal, does it? Industrial hemp just has to exceed 0.3%, then it's marijuana. Oops. Driving forces, so how this happens over time and what actually forces this to happen faster. This happened to a client of ours, and they got pissed, and I spent a whole bunch of time retesting something. Living versus dried flower, specifically alcohol-based concentrates and extracts. Then we'll talk about the medical and legal implications. This does not actually have to do with epilepsy. This has to do with more relevance to Colorado and probably even greater relevance to people who are living outside of Colorado who are using CBD products, because CBD is legal in all 50 states. THC is not, right? Okay. Am I still within my square? Yeah, I am. Raise your hand if this is your first time at Frank Talk. Okay. It's someone who's been here before. What is the first rule of Frank Talk?
don't talk about Frank talk.
It's my first time.
Okay, according to Facebook, that's true. They wouldn't
Participate?
No! You have to fight. Actually, he's a big guy. He's like, I feel good about that. No. First rule of Frank Talk, this is an earlier photo. We have discussion. You have to participate. You don't have to participate. People are like, terrified, that's worse than fighting. He still seems okay. I have a great deal more fun, and I learn a great deal more, and everyone else does too, because we have people from all parts of the industry if participation occurs. There's a lot of things I don't know, you don't know, because marijuana, and actually there's just some plain made up things because marijuana has been illegal for 70 years, right? This does this, and you're gonna go crazy and kill your family. Man, Colorado, you've seen a lot of that in the last 2 years, right? No, violent crime is actually down in Colorado. Applause. So, no, this is your first Frank Talk. If you want to, and I ask a question, it's perfectly okay to be like, raise your hand if you want to know something, or just bring something up. Okay, I did have people tell me, this will turn Schedule 0, hemp, CBD. This is not a new phenomenon, it's just an obscure one. Who knows that CBD was discovered in 1940, 80 years ago? Cindy's the only one because she's tired of me telling her that. Catherine's the only other one. She's like, eh. It was discovered by Roger Adams, who was really awesome, by the way. He's a great chemist. He discovered this right after the Tax Act was passed, effectively illegalizing THC. He went and presented this to the ACS, I think, and people asked him what it was like, and he's like, well, I smoked some, it was very pleasant. It made a lot of people angry. He got put on a list, as a commie or something like that. Seriously, they followed this guy around, but he was a great chemist. He discovered CBD, and he was immediately like, this doesn't do anything. How can I make it actually like marijuana? And he discovered that if you treat it with alcohol and hydrochloric acid and a number of other things, it converts to different types of tetrahydrocannabinols. And he's like, and then he smoked some, and he proved it was active. Literally, that happened. So, this is one of my dated references. You scientists, you blew up CBD. Damn you to hell. Anyone? I see people under 20 here. Planet of the Apes. It is the original. The remake was terrible. Come on. Marky Mark? Sorry. There are whole lists from 1940 until present day, including one that just came out a couple months ago, in 2016, that various types of conditions, including stomach acid, convert over significant, we're not talking 100%, 1% to 10% is significant, to tetrahydrocannabinol. The stomach acid part is particularly significant when I talk about the legal implications. I have a longer list of this, and the surprise ones. Okay, when I said this should make sense, everyone knows if you take a rock at the top of a hill and you push it, is it going to roll uphill or is it going to roll downhill? It's going to go roll downhill. CBD is the least stable of these three cannabinoids that I'm naming. CBD is the least stable. If you give it a little bit of push or you just give it time, it will roll downhill and it'll turn to THC. Notice how there's a little gentle slope? If you've ever purchased cannabis and then waited a year to smoke it, does it get better with age? It gets stronger, right? Oh man, I'm really feeling this cannabinol now. Cannabinol is the breakdown product of THC. It's the end. It will eventually decay into like nothing, but cannabinol you will find in old weed and old industrial hemp because CBD, THC, cannabinol. Cannabinol then basic parts that won't do anything for even a mouse. Everyone's experienced this with old weed at least? Everyone's like, I live in Colorado, I don't smoke old weed until like a year ago. Okay, if you were over 21 before legalization, raise your hand so I'm not alone here. Yeah, I see the rest of you. You guys are like, you are so lucky. Used to be like, man, I gotta store this. I know it's only got a little time, I gotta put it in the freezer. All right. This is essentially what happens. I am not gonna go into the chemical parts of this unless you want to afterwards. Carter's like, oh. Because most of you are not chemists. It is pretty cool. But most of you are not chemists. The downhill rolly part seems appropriate. Okay, time of storage. The longer you store cannabidiol and THC, the more it will decay. You don't have to do anything. If you keep it in your car, will that make it go slower or faster? It will go faster. Temperature is a key component of this. So it's called thermal degradation, but it will cause enough energy to push that thing so it starts rolling downhill. Yes, Anna?
Even if you keep it at like -80 in the car? No, in a -80 freezer, like, will that make a difference every time, or maybe?
I gotta admit, I really want to try that. I have not kept any at -80 Celsius. I did have an old German supervisor who told me nothing moves at -80 Celsius. So stupid, comrade.
I have a -80 if you want. Who's he?
He got fired.
Oh, okay.
He was telling me I was stupid because I had made some enzyme, and he said no molecules move at -80, and I was trying to show that this enzyme didn't goddamn work after I'd frozen it for 6 months.
Okay.
The answer is I don't know, but if anyone tells you something is impossible, some things are improbable, nothing is impossible, some things still decay at -80.
Of course. Thank you.
Or it may simply decay extremely rapidly when you thaw it to room temperature to test it, which probably was the case with the enzymes that I was testing.
Okay.
Stupid German. Anyway, all right. Who deliberately dumps their cannabinol in acidic pH? Probably no one. But there are many people who ingest cannabis orally, including CBD. What's in your stomach? Stomach acid. One of the stronger acids, hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid, even by itself, at body temperature, will convert over cannabidiol to THC and CBN. One of the papers I referenced from 2016 demonstrates that. They did it in simulated they did cannabidiol in simulated gastric juices because they were concerned. They actually make a epidermal patch. They have cited studies where epileptic children have had a rate of things like that look like psychoactivity, like sleepiness, fatigue, and other things that are not associated with cannabidiol, and they're like, well, what if part of this is converting over? This is a known process. They're like, under physiological conditions, can this convert over to THC? Turns out that it can. It's a pretty decent paper. And the last thing, which is kind of really relevant, it was to one of our clients, and I'll give you actually the real data on that. I try not to use chromatograms because people are like, they immediately stop looking. Alcohol, specifically methanol and ethanol, but probably other alcohols as well. How much? Wait, Cindy's trying to give me a time thing. Am I at 10 minutes? Oh, I'm talking really fast, aren't I? Okay. If you combine a couple of... I know, it's really hard. I'm like... Really, yeah. If you combine alcohol with not even that elevated of temperatures, along with even a minor level of acidity, you will create significant amounts of THC. I got yelled at for this. I remember this very well. Even time by itself, though, just go back to the weed analogy and that whole downhill analogy. Just time by itself, even in freezer temperatures, there are a couple of forensic papers on this in Europe that were like, we really don't want to prosecute people for hemp possession in Romania versus THC possession. Hemp has been around, it's been legal in Europe for quite a bit longer, by the way. And they were genuinely concerned we might really screw people if this happened, and I try not to use the word obsessed anymore, I use over-dedicated. Some very dedicated forensic scientists did a study over 2 years of industrial hemp in the freezer, in the fridge, in the light, in the dark, whole bunch of different things, and he showed that CBD steadily decayed. No matter what you did to it, whether you kept it in the cold or not, it would steadily decay to THC and then CBN. It was a very overly dedicated, I appreciated the level of detail there. Okay, does this happen in a living plant cell? Not really. We have a few clients, because we work in industrial hemp testing as well as cannabis testing, a few clients who have refined their genetics to the point where there is probably no THC synthase in there whatsoever, but there are very, very potent CBDA synthases. So they get around 18 to 20% CBDA, which is really good. And yet, when they dry this and they test it, you're still actually detecting less than 0% like THCA, but they will find, like upon certain circumstances, that this thing will pop back up. But the reason you don't see it, once you've refined out the genetics, is that the plant environment where this thing produces it, so you've got these little trichomes here, and this is actually what they look like. This is one of these THCA is one of those molecules and CBDA is one of those molecules that is actually secreted outside the cell. They just dump it into a gland called the trichome, and it is the perfect storage condition for CBDA. So if you test a plant that really has only CBDA in it, the plant is maintaining its pH. That was a scooter, wasn't it? Seems more impressive to... No, I'm not going to say that. That's not politically correct. Self-editing. Plant has got this little storage capsule, trichome head, and it maintains its pH, and to the best extent it maintains moisture in a certain area so that it will maintain that perfect CBDA or THCA. What it can't really control though is temperature. Anyone here grown industrial hemp? No one's grown? Oh, okay. What some of our farmers found, somebody's like, I'd like to. Always, yeah. What some of our farmers have found, the indoor growers versus the outside growers, is that the outside growers get at least a marginal spike in THCA midsummer. Why? Radiation? Use real words. Thermal. Part of it's UV, but plants are very green for a reason. They absorb ultraviolet radiation and they don't get cancer or turn into the Hulk. Partially correct. Thermal radiation or heat. So in the midsummer, plants are generally okay at maintaining, approximate temperature, whatever, but you're getting even a little bit of elevation, and you've already got elevated levels of CBDA, you will get an increase of 0.5%, which makes it illegal, appearance of THCA. Even though they don't have the genetics to produce it. This is just spontaneous conversion of CBDA over to THCA.
This happened to a grower down south this year, right? In America.
This happened to a bunch of growers. If you eventually get into, because I think both markets are going to go back and forth, particularly for industrial hemp, in states where THC is not legal, a bunch of them have had to burn their crops. Colorado has got a guideline of 0.3% is the guideline for like this is marijuana or not, but they let you go up to 1% before they call the cops and say this is marijuana. And you can get upwards to like 3%, like at 1% they're like, burn it. Past 3%, they're like, yeah, the genetics definitely say that's probably marijuana, and it's actively producing it. The reason that they give that margin, even though they don't say that, is because driving back and forth. I love you too. Wherever you are, you can come in for Frank Talks. Okay. Just by spontaneous heat conversion in a living plant that is doing its damnedest and way more attentive than a human person ever could be to its little storage vesicle, you will get conversion over to something that is now technically illegal. Christy, is that you back there? Hey, Christy's from Breckenridge. So okay, people are like, oh, that's not significant. I just already pointed out it is. It's now illegal. Say it's insignificant to a farmer's got to burn his whole field. You can get punched. Okay, more significant and more financially disastrous than the thing I got yelled at for, which turned out was not my fault. In blue, over here is CBDA, CBD, and this was the extract, the alcohol extract of one of our clients' CBD products. This is the peak for THCA, which is the plant part found in the plant. This is THC, this is CBN. You notice in blue, all you have is CBDA and CBD, right? Oh, sorry, wait, did I make that up? Oh, I overlaid this to the reference standard. Damn it. Forget that. Oh, damn, it did do the overlap. Forgive me, I did the wrong overlap on this. In blue is the retest that I did and overlaid it with the reference standard. Our client originally only had CBDA in their product, and I'll actually correct this slide because I have both of these. They sent this off across state lines to somebody in Oregon who was making medicinal products. That is totally legal. Their product was stored as CBDA. Cannabidiolic acid, emphasis on acid, was actually the problem because we couldn't figure out if this thing had very little alcohol left in it, where was the source of acid? When you decarboxylate THCA, there's a fly that keeps hitting me in the face.
We can see it.
When you yeah, it's going to be on a film like this big. When you decarboxylate CBDA or THCA, what do you produce? Come on, Carter.
CBD or THC?
What's the other thing you produce?
Oh, CO2.
CO2. What does CO2 turn into when it's trapped in liquid form or in the presence of water? Carbonic acid. Carbonic acid is a very weak acid, but if you're releasing a whole bunch of that and it's right next to your CBD or your THC molecule, it is a strong enough acid to produce THCA and THC. I wrote this on the board and like their chemist was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, because I was like, what the hell? We got alcohol, but they got rid of that. It was enough to convert it over from barely detectable to 3% within 30 days. How much time? I don't know what that means, Cindy.
That means 20. You're at 20 minutes.
I have 20 minutes left? I'm at 20 minutes. All right, I'm doing all right. I usually talk until... Make more sense. The reason that I created this little icon, because can of bomb, it was too much. I couldn't trademark it, unfortunately. Is that there are 11 states now that have created cannabidiol-only legislation. THC is still illegal. Inevitably, these two things look alike. As Chad mentioned, like I've done a lot of work in the field color test that law enforcement uses. They are not incredibly specific for THC. They will react with a lot of things. Inevitably, a patient in one of those states is going to be evaluated for possession of something that is a brown oil that tests positive on a color test, and when you look at it like this, part of it will have converted over. They will not have done that intentionally. The basis for like having all these explanations is somebody's like, you can't tell people CBD converts into THC, they'll freak out. Who cares? Part of this talk is for the people who are in those states that do not have the largesse that we have in Colorado, where we can possess THC and not get arrested for it. They should have that right too, and I think that's inevitable, but this is the whole reason, is that I didn't believe this until we started testing this, and when I looked into the research and realized that somebody had known this for 80 years, I was like, what the hell? Okay, we'll get on to some of the interesting questions and actually the implications of this. Everybody pees. Okay. I actually ran out of time. I was going to have the baby peeing, but I assume everybody knows this.
Why are you 6 girls?
Come on, man, we ran out of time.
This was a quick drawing that was universally understood, okay? Right? Come on, guys, girls. I am a scientist. I realize I have to bring things down to the kindergarten level. Someone in Japan would understand what this means, right? Some women have really strong uterine wall muscles. Uterine pelvic floor muscles, excuse me. That is an actual scientific term. All right. This also counts for blood tests and metabolites. The reason I partly brought this up is, remember my old German boss who's a D-bag? I no longer work for that company. I quit. And I was like, I used to be randomly drug test whenever I came back from Burning Man. Randomly. I'm relatively new to cannabis use because for a very long time I had a very, very evil boss who I totally outsmarted. I never got busted on that drug test. The reason I bring up everybody pees though is that even in Colorado, but particularly in other states, drug testing, urinalysis particularly, if there is a workplace accident, to be in compliance with their insurance policy, it does not matter that THC is legal in Colorado. The very first thing that will happen if you have an accident is you will be tested for drugs. It doesn't matter if it's legal here. If it turns out that it's in your system, does anyone follow that case with that guy who worked for Comcast? Yes. He did not win that case. He was actually using cannabis for pain. The significance of this is that you could protest your innocence all day long, and I'm really going to show you why this is a problem in a second slide. You could protest that, you could test positive for THC. You don't have to show that you had intoxicating levels because they don't have any good studies on what that means. It's not the same as alcohol. Second part of significance. Oh, did I? Yeah, I did put that in. Pregnancy and at birth, some hospitals test all babies at birth for Schedule I substances. You are not required to give consent for that to happen. Yeah, as Greg said. What Greg Grant said. Greg Grant.
That's our primary thing to stop babies from getting taken away from.
Get to it at the end. Hold on.
Social services
pops right in now.
What happens if you test positive for any Schedule I substances is Child Protective Services is called. Does not matter that THC is legal. It could be anything. That doesn't mean you're going to lose your baby, but it's probably something very uncomfortable and adding to a stressful time that you really don't want. Now, you could be using cannabidiol purely for medicinal purposes, and maybe you got some converted over as THC. Maybe some of the metabolites, trust me, this is going to become like some of the metabolites are converted over, but in either case, it does not require 10 nanograms or 5 nanograms per mil for you to be guilty of this crime. You would actually be, it would be implied because of this. Last thing, yeah, actually those are the two things I was hitting. So this intersects in a very interesting medical and legal place. We had occasion, this is definitely a pleasure for occasion for a cause. One of the things that Cindy and I do is professional consulting and in some cases expert testimony on cannabis testing in states where it's still illegal. Our client a month ago, 2 months ago, was facing a year in prison, and her husband was facing 15 years in prison for a very small amount of cannabis. A month after that, after I had a talk with the prosecutor, he filed a nolle prosequi, which means all charges dropped. Everyone, a round of applause.
You're a lawyer, Frank.
I am late to this fight, but I got stuff to give. I'm late to this fight because my boss made me peanut butter. These are two papers from forensic journals, both in 2012. These are common forensic methods, and they are particularly used for low levels of THC in blood, urine, amniotic fluid, and meconium, which is part of the placenta. It's actually, guys are all like, what the hell is this? And they're like, don't talk about placenta. Girls, it's part of pregnancy, that kind of thing. Guys are like, okay, we'll just accept that. Yeah. To amplify THC so that you can see it, yes, it's baby's food. Okay. To amplify THC that you can see it, there's a method called derivatization that is commonly used in GCMS, GCMMS, and one of the authors commented on this, and I thought this was extraordinarily courageous, and they probably got hit in the face for it professionally. They were troubled by the fact that only 4 other forensic authors had noted this. 2 methods of forensic analysis in bodily fluids of THC converted to CBD. Or the other way around. That would actually be fun. 2 methods of toxicology and forensic analysis that look at blood samples, saliva samples, urine samples, and amniotic fluid by themselves. You don't even, say you manage to store everything perfectly, you don't have any stomach acid, you put on a cannabidiol patch, by themselves they convert CBD over to THC. These are not papers I put in my lab that people are like, well, you could have just made that study up because you're a cannabis scientist and you're biased. These are forensic scientists. And they were like, one of them even noted, we cannot possibly exclude the presence of CBD because of this, and we cannot use this as a diagnostic tool to prosecute anyone because that would be wrong. So, if you hear of anyone getting into this situation, where it's particularly relevant in Colorado, because I don't believe that many people know about this, is pregnancy testing. Many women have inflammatory disorders are pretty rampant. Many women take either cannabis or even if they just limit themselves to cannabidiol-only treatments, and they just casually tell their doctor, in good faith, by the way, I've been taking this because I've got rheumatoid arthritis or something else. In many cases, that doctor is obligated to then note that, then they're obligated to test that baby, then Child Protective Services. And again, going back to the downhill metaphor.
Yeah, but she recorded it. She's telling her that she's taking it.
She admits it.
Cannabidiol is not illegal.
She's taking it for a reason. It's not like she's taking it to have fun. I mean,
I'm not arguing at all that this is right. We should put pregnant women in jail. I'm not saying that. I'm not on record saying that. My point is that they feel that they have no recourse, much like in the days in other states. Take a plea bargain just to get your baby back. No. Fight it with science. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Let me give me a yeah. You fight with science? I mean, last 80 years? No, we've always lost. We are now winning. Let's keep winning. Okay, those are the implications of that. And, what time am I at, Cindy?
29 minutes.
That is a personal record I usually go over. So now, Q&A, way more details on all these things. I would like to come and hang out with you, so we'll have like a brief 10-minute Q&A, and then we'll mingle and stuff. Anyone have any questions related to any of these topics, or anything even peripherally related? Carter?
That diagram you showed of the THC and the CBD and the CBN. My question is where does the acidic form of those cannabinoids fit into them?
I was going to draw a more complex diagram.
I'm sure.
I was talked out by my lovely partner who's like, CBDA is less stable than CBD. It rolls downward towards CBD. THCA is more stable than that, but still less stable than THC. You know this, everyone knows this. When you smoke weed, you have to heat it, right? If you just ate a bunch of raw cannabis, what would happen?
You'd have really good nutritional value.
You'd have really good nutritional value. Would you get high? You would probably not get that high. Maybe some would break down in your stomach, but THCA is not active. It is heat labile, so when you heat it, it deactivates and it turns into THC. So that's true of the acidic forms for both of them, Carter. The fact that they're acidic, that part of the molecule is what renders it less stable. So it's high up on the hill above the other ones. You just need temperature pretty much around boiling, and it'll start converting over. It's a fine balance, though. If you've ever over decarboxylated your stuff, what do you get? CBN.
Is there a CBN? I've never heard.
It does not occur naturally in nature, and then I've heard people tell me that it has. I've never seen it in nature. You can create it. I don't know why. You would sometimes you're like, man, I should totally make that molecule that's even less active than CBN. Because nobody's done it before. That is a scientist thing. Check this out. I would be impressed. And I'd be like, what do we do with that now? You spent $100 making that $5 worth of CBN. Not obsessed, over dedicated. You just got to do it because you just got to see if you can do it, if it can happen.
But you never know what drug might treat any kind of illness, right? Maybe really
Christy brings up an excellent point. People have claimed, I have problem with cannabis so far is that there's still very few or very limited clinical studies on it because it's illegal. There's no research. It has no medical value. What just happened last week?
Bullshit.
We can't make it legal because there's no research on it, but we won't let you do research on it to show that it has medicinal value so that we can make it legal. We're getting there. We really are. There may be medicinal value to CBN. It's not psychoactive. Supposedly it helps you sleep better.
But it could be part of the entourage too, right?
Too much topic for today's time. I'll admit that CBN may have medicinal value.
Whole food.
I will still not pay $50 a gram for it. So, yeah. It's 10 times less psychoactive. It's 10 times less active than THC. I'd be willing to pay 10 times less for it. So if somebody was selling me CBN for $1, I'd be like, all right, let's try some.
Penny.
Anyone else? No.
I can give anybody information on the pregnancy. We've worked on it for a long time. I know the details, specifics.
Follow up with Greg, plug it into Google, etc. Just simply don't, if any of your friends has this issue, just don't let them fall down the wrong hill towards consequences of that.
Terry's written
Yeah.
on it. It's on her blog. It's very, very complicated. Anybody that's pregnant really needs to take time. Most importantly is a relationship with your doctor and there's ways to deal with it.
I would even say, just be very careful. As Greg said, make sure you trust your doctor. Yes, what's your name? Charlie. First time in Frank Talk? Everyone welcome Charlie. Oh, and it's Patty's first time at Frank Talk. And Everyone, be like Patty. Bring 2 friends to Frank Talk next month. Charlie, sorry, go ahead.
So top 2 questions when talking CBD.
Okay.
Do I get high and will I test hot for THC? That no and the yes?
Everyone, I've gotten used to better at answering this question. It depends. CBD, depending on how you treated it and depending on how you ingest it, like if you smoked it, it's very likely it would just convert over to CBN. We had one of our very first industrial hemp clients gave us this thing. He's like, I've held this industrial hemp for a whole year. It's got high CBD. And I was like, it's got CBN in it. And that was the first time I actually learned this. Is like, if it's flower, it's very likely that, I mean, if you push a ball down a hill, using that analogy again, if you push it with enough force, is it just going to rest in that little thing? It's going to keep on rolling. Burning it, it's more likely to convert it over to CBN. Ingesting it, because now you're adding acid and a lower temperature, you are very likely to get at least some THC. Will you test positive for it? How often you use it? How much you ingest? Over what period of time? I think Normal has a really good chart when people are asking like, will I test hot for a urine test? And they actually did a great study, I think it was in the Netherlands. Infrequent users, a couple times a week, multiple times daily, and they showed how long it takes THC to get out of your system. As for this, even though this has been known for 80 years, CBD hasn't been popular for that long. People only started really breeding in CBD genetics pretty recently. I don't know. At the level that CBD is converted to THC, I would say somebody who was using it chronically, the whole reason for this talk is that I think there'd be a good chance you would fail a urinalysis, particularly with forensic methods or toxicology methods that then converted over to THC. So even if you weren't going to, you're going to fail. Yeah. What's that? I do not advocate the use of psychoactive or non-psychoactive substances on this show. No, what I'm saying is that our law requires forensic and toxicology assays. Oh, what's your name? First time? All right, you get to fight Charlie. Today's question was, all right, so you smoke it. Let's look at it a different way, because I've gained new perspective, like really with our client who was charged with really minor possession, but they were throwing really heavy charges at it for like cannabis possession. I'll look at it instead this way, which is not precisely scientific, but it's a good strategy. Forensic and toxicology assays should be accurate. If you had a 50% chance of failing a DUI and you weren't drinking at all, would that be fair under our legal system? No. What I'm pointing out here is that because those assays, and because this can occur, as one person even pointed out, who's a forensic toxicologist, you cannot rule out the fact that this person might have just been using cannabidiol and that this occurs. That should be the point. Whatever the hell we do with ourselves, and it causes no harm to anybody else, is none of anyone's goddamn business. All right, staying on the line into activism. I think that answered your question, though. If you get tested for something and somebody tries to throw consequences at you, get more scientific backup. Trust me, I will come kick down their door. We've already done it in a few places, scientifically. This is your lab. There goes your lab. So, it was a really good team up between me and the lawyer. We were like, it was like, I was gonna say Starsky and Hutch. Is there anything?
Maybe a whole like reality show.
Okay, Alan.
On that subject, so in Colorado, I'm not sure the exact percentage that a person has in their bloodstream when they're tested for a DUI.
It's 10 nanograms per mil.
Which is pretty low. So practically, like we've seen that juries pretty much lost cases like that, but still, for the average person, potentially is that even if they were using CBD and not metabolized, what are the costs involved in that? How is it medical? Yeah, I mean, medical doesn't even matter at that point, right? The law is not carving an exemption for that.
All terror, right? I'll repeat the question. Alan was asking, what's the limit, what's the definition of intoxication? I gave a presentation actually specifically on cannabis DUI laws a couple of months ago.
Do it again.
Again, the answer is I will actually. It's a good
Right
talk.
now.
I've been waiting to see where they go with where to go with some of these. You cannot simply say take like an existing DUI legislation for alcohol and say and swap in THC and have that work. They're metabolized totally differently. Chronic users can have way beyond 10 nanograms per mil. There's a functional definition. There's a functional definition of impairment. Hold on a second, Greg. And in alcohol, it's actually very well studied. Alcohol, as it turns out, is not a very strong drug. You need to, compared to a lot of other drugs, drink a lot of it for it to have a, here's how much is in your blood being exhaled, and this now correlates with impairment. They literally have studied alcohol impairment and the correlation there since the 30s. Read a whole 200-page thesis on it. I don't recommend you guys do that. People only started to do that with cannabis, and there are some very good studies in Europe where they have done that, actually in Belgium, because they want to know impairment, etc. The answer is, which is very complicated and not particularly satisfying, is that it probably varies widely depending on people. I personally don't think with cannabis they're going to get to a level where it's like every person at this level is impaired. You have to have functional impairment because same as any other type of drug. If you're functionally impaired, whether it's from fatigue or opiates or hallucinogens or cannabis, alcohol is the only real exception to this. Functional impairment is more important than whatever's in your bloodstream. So to answer that though, 5 nanograms per mil, 5 or 10? 5 nanograms per mil in your blood is an extremely low level.
For deciliters.
Yes, milliliters.
Deciliters.
Milliliters.
It's micrograms per deciliter, nanograms per milliliter.
Thank you. Metric. They're equivalent to the same thing. Going back to the answer to your question though. Going back to that slide where I just cited those 2 toxicology papers, and there's a few more. There is reasonable doubt if somebody had anywhere in that level and now you're showing up with THC, I would go to that. If the method by itself is creating an illegal drug where one did not exist or it's plausible that it does, those are commonly used forensic methods. The problem with most drug possession cases, particularly with cannabis, it's been accepted for so long. All right, we busted you. Who read that New York Times article like a month and a half ago? It was on color tests. Woman got busted in Texas, and they were like, well, this test positive for crack cocaine with a color test. She was totally innocent. And she pled guilty because she was like, all right, she basically got stuck in a prison for 72 hours, and her lawyer's like, you should definitely flee just to get out of this. That happens in 90% of cannabis cases, I think. People are like, this is the severe life-ending or altering consequences if I try to fight this, including money, months, other things. That needs to stop right now. So, in answer to your question, it's not a scientific answer. It's a pragmatic one. If someone was tested, they don't believe that they were impaired. I'm not saying this for, oh, you should definitely fight it. If someone was tested for that and they're getting blood tests and they're like, all right, you're impaired and there's no functional impairment, get the test, get everything retested, you've got reasonable doubt that possibly the methodology used is skewed toward you being guilty versus you being innocent.
But you would never lean on
Can you say that louder?
Would you ever lean on amnesty for a medical recommendation?
I don't know what do you mean lean on an amnesty?
I mean, would you use that as an argument in front of a judge?
I would argue, I stay, and the reason why I was saying like I stay on like the objective side versus like the active side, even though my feelings, I have feelings. People are like, oh. They're not when I'm in court. Because they can't be, that's actually,
Okay, hold on.
Greg, kindergarten. Hold on a second. I need to answer this question.
You're missing a very important point because we
Greg,
actually have.
we will promise to come back to your point.
But it's what he's asking. We have possible.
And I will
for medical patients
answer
to
his
use that.
question,
I have
Greg.
patience. I have patience. It's fine.
The answer to your question is that if you look at the scientific evidence for studying very small amounts of THC or CBD in the blood, there is room for a considerable amount of error. Law enforcement required, in the case where they decided to no longer continue to prosecute, they had been testing at such a low level that their background was almost as high as the signal. If your noise is almost equivalent to your signal, is that a real signal?
They're at the margin of their calibration.
So do you lean on amnesty? That's a personal appeal. I can't make that in my role as an expert witness. I can say, here's the methodology. here's obviously what is potentially flawed with this. There is reasonable doubt that testing causes to occur. I can't change the scientific standard to meet the needs of my client. There have been cases where we're like, I can't help you. Your lawyer could probably help you. I personally cannot help you. But I think in many cases, more Americans than not believe that there is pain relief, for example, from cannabis, and don't believe that you should go to jail for 20 years for it.
Jury nullification.
I don't even actually really know what that means. Great, thank you for being patient. If you can answer this, one sentence.
It's not one sentence. We worked on this for 4 years. Colorado has a possible inference where you can actually defend your ability to have over 5 nanograms using your medical card. Never pull your medical card during the arrest. Delay to let your system go down as much as possible. They will give you a blood test, and then they can take it from there. We did a case today with a lot of this very thing. We worked on this. Other states have a per se. 5 nanograms, you're guilty, done. We do not have that here. If you have a medical reason, and the whole thing about the pregnancy, if you have a concern, talk to your doctor and tell them you have migraines and you need Marinol, and just don't even use it. All right? It's simple.
Okay, Lexi,
This
wait.
is legal advice.
Greg is not an attorney, nor am I. Consult a bar-certified Colorado attorney. Lexi. Back to Patty.
Secrete CBD is fine.
What's that?
Is anything other than cannabis secrete CBD? That's a good question.
Probably. I don't know.
It's a good cocktail.
Next question.
No, you had mentioned functionality,
Mm-hmm.
and I might paraphrase it to that, but with all the body cams on the officers, hypothetically say you get pulled over,
Yeah.
see a good example or an opportunity while under the camera to exactly create data where his functionality was fine, and we created, so I don't know what they do, maybe blow or blood, whatever that is. Use that in that argument is what I'm like hearing.
Patty was asking about the problem with saying, are you functionally impaired or not is, after the fact, how do you prove it? If you were only there with one other person and that person was arresting you.
Yeah.
Body cams would be one way to address that. That's a whole subject.
Well, I just bring it up because it's like they're being exposed more because.
I personally think that body cams in all situations would stop a lot of things.
Right?
I think that they would be a really good idea because camera recording is,
Irrefutable?
no, you can misinterpret stuff like on a camera, but it's an objective record, a more objective record of what happened. Personal accounts can vary.
Facebook Live.
What's that?
Facebook Live stream, you could do that too.
Everyone should wear body cameras on their persons. No, people would inevitably forget and there'd be weird videos getting uploaded. No one having more privacy. We're talking stuff you do when you're alone. Yeah, bathroom stuff. Carolyn.
What can you tell us about thermal degradation?
Oh, Carolyn. Carolyn's asking what I know about thermal degradation of terpenes. A lot. You will all die of hunger and anger and other things before I finish telling you that.
Next topic.
Next topic, because it does relate to one of my favorite topics, which is fungal susceptibility.
Yes, no.
Okay, I'm gonna round things up because my throat's getting dry and we can all hang out and we should all congregate. Yeah. We have things about once a month. Herman's Hideaway, thank you again. I should have said this at the beginning, but you guys are all fixated. Herman's Hideaway is providing us with this venue free of charge. And please, buy drinks. Even if you just buy one, this is a free event. What's our bartender's name? Jill. Thank you. Okay, and that concludes this Frank Talk. If you have any ideas for topics, although I kind of think I know what the next one is, Karen kind of got that one. Talking about like terpene analysis, thermal degradation of terpenes. Terpenes are all over the place. They're very interesting. They're the hot meat in, and maybe we'll talk about them next month. All right, you are released.
Colorado Green Lab. We feel very honored. Frank Conrad, part of the Worldviral.tv family. This will be uploaded on our archives, so if you didn't get a chance to check it out, go to Worldviral.tv. You will see it in our archives. We definitely join it. Invite you to join us next month. Until then, thanks for joining us.
What are you involved in? You could be anyone. Just who are you today? You could be a hero. Assume the life you live. Or you could just be the tester. Carry on with
if you're getting high in Colorado today, enjoy it.
Colorado Harvest Company.
Colorado Harvest Company. Colorado Harvest Company. Colorado Harvest Company. Colorado Harvest Company.
Worldviral.
Hey, yo, what up, world? This is Big M1 from Dead Prez. Check out my album, Between Me and the World. And you are checking out Worldviral, lifted by Colorado Harvest Company, right here. Get lifted.
Here's an idea. Let's take a well-known local music editor, stick him in a room with a couple hot chicks, Chad Drew,
the quintessential stoner,
and then we'll force him to watch some videos of an uncensored, cracked-out motel shit show from next door. Sound awesome?
I like it.
Tune into Music Buzz Live Radio Wednesdays, 6 to 8 p.m. right here on World Viral TV.
Worldviral.